The story unfolds in the early Joseon dynasty, where a railway repair project is fraught with political tension. When will the railway repair work be over?
It looks like it will be over in the next 3 months. 3 months? To think I'd have to watch the people going through discomfort for 3 months? How can it take that long? Finish it within 1 month. But, Your Majesty, if we do that, it will lead to numerous troubles. The number of workers and the amount of labor of the people and slaves will increase. This goes against your prearranged plan, Your Majesty. We implore you to reconsider your decision, taking care to make sure that even mere slaves do not overwork. You're all misunderstanding something. If you truly care about the people's grievances, can't you just join them too? If that's not the case, should I join there too? We... Then shall I assume that it will be done in 1 month? Yes, Your Majesty. Historian, what are you typing so long? By any chance, are you cursing at me? No, my fingers are still inept. Really? Should I send you back to the administrative training center? I shall do my best to type. I'm watching you. I'm hungry. I shall grab a bite and let us gather again in 30 minutes. Understood, Your Majesty. Kim Ja-hon. Hey, Kim Jin-ho. Why aren't you taking your calls? This isn't it. Brother Byung-ho, when did you come? I just came, you brat. What were you making that you didn't even hear me calling you? Ah, I got an order to make a nice blade for sashimi. Sashimi? A nice blade? It's just a fillet knife. It was ordered by a Japanese restaurant in Seoul. Well, sure. I'll believe you since you can't lie. My. Don't make it so obvious every time that you're a detective. Anyways, take this. My mom made this kimchi. She wants you to eat well. Oh, tell Auntie that I said thank you. By the way, why don't you clean? What's up with this look? You brat, what is this, huh? You bastard, are you in your right mind making this thing in Korea? Is that so? I thought you made a real gun. Steel wire? Huh? Hey, you bastard, why would you use steel wire in a prop? Ugh, if I'm going to make it, I must make it properly and meet the customer's needs. Needs my ass. Is your customer a terrorist or something? Bastard. You moved in here so you could use me at times like this, calling me your cover-up? No. This won't do. Open your storage, you little... Should I bring a warrant? Really, someone who makes privately crafted guns. But what's this smell since earlier? Which house sprayed so much manure? It's my field. Huh? Now you work in the field, too? I was making potassium nitrate. What about potassium nitrate now? Little brother, do you know how much I went through to pull you apart from the uncle when you went to the States saying that you wanted to make a ship? There's a limit to causing problems. Plow it over at once. I'm going to check in 2 days, so make sure to plow them over. Put the kimchi in the refrigerator right away. Got it? Yes. Phew, I'll have to borrow a tractor from Mr. Huang tomorrow. It's a relief that he didn't catch this. Had he caught this, he'd have thrown me into the detention center by now. Why did I make this? Anyways, I must not be caught with this at all costs. An earthquake! Erg! No! Dear, our baby has opened his eyes. Oh my, it's true. Did these people save me? His bright eyes resemble yours, dear. His sharp nose resembles yours, dear. What are they on about? What's their dialect? Oh my, he moved. Is he uncomfortable somewhere? Kim Jin-ho, dead at 35, woke up as a newborn baby in the Joseon period.
It has been 3 months since Jin-ho reincarnated as a baby. While eavesdropping on others' conversations, he found out a few things. First, this is the Joseon period. Judging by the clothing, it's around the early Joseon dynasty. And my father is royalty, though far from the throne. According to what I heard during class in high school, the king even said his entire day was all about study. Ha! That guy's talking nonsense again. That thing won't even come up in the exam. That's why people don't listen to him. Unlike the extremely busy king, the royalties who were not kings had to stay away from learning just to survive. Which king would like a relative smarter than himself? In other words, I just have to keep studying to a minimum. And since I'm the eldest son of this family, it means I don't have to worry about social status or making a living. Really, it's the perfect setting to do my hobbies passionately. Since young, Jin-ho displayed an unusual self. It's my first time seeing a 5-year-old solve a Rubik's Cube. His parents' expectations gradually increased due to the extraordinary reactions of those around him. Your child's IQ test result is extraordinary. He's at the level often said to be a genius. The level of a genius? As expected of my son, I'm proud of you, Jin-ho. However, not long after, the hope turned into disappointment. Jin-ho was extremely smart, but not academically. Simply put, he was a child suited to be an inventor. An inventor? In today's world? That's why it's a pity. Had Jin-ho been born just a bit earlier, he might have become an inventor whose name remained in history. The most important part of his genius, studying, was missing. "Why would a smart brat like you not study?" his father scolded. "You'd do well if you just studied a little, just a bit. I'm saying all this for your sake." Suffering from his parents' nagging and academic stress, Jin-ho ended up becoming obsessed with his hobbies: steam engine model manufacturing, creating a steam locomotive model, learning how to make an arched blade from a Joseon craftsman, and forging full-plate armor based on historical anecdotes. Seeing such passion, acquaintances called him a polymath. The news anchor's voice echoed. The waterplane that uses only manpower to fly succeeded in flying at the mouth of the Han River. This bastard he said to be as genius as a college inventor. His father sighed heavily. "What should we do about that brat Jin-ho? He's only doing useless things and not studying as we told him to. There's a limit to understanding hobbies." Paying no heed to this, by the time Jin-ho entered his 3rd year in university, he caused a large-scale accident. He received an email invitation. "Hello, Jin-ho. We're gathering people to build a sailboat from a famous pirate movie using traditional methods. Although it will be 1/4 the size, we'll use authentic materials throughout. Are you interested?" And so Jin-ho flew to the United States. "I'll be back," his father shouted. "Kim Jin-ho!" A few months later. "Hey, Habibi, your skills are really good. I happen to need a cruising yacht. Make me a full-size one. I'll fund it and pay you monthly. Deal?" "Deal." And so Jin-ho's stay in the U.S. became longer. And so did the waiting period for him to return to Korea. When he finally returned, tension filled the air. "How could you go to the U.S. without a single call? I've never bred a child like you. Get out at once." "Honey, please. It's been so long since Jin-ho came home. He's like this because you look over it every time. Is this his first time pulling this stunt?"
"But how could you hit your child?" she cried. "He can't get himself together because you're always spoiling him. Are you saying it's my fault Jinho is like this?" "I was wrong," Jinho whispered. "Please don't fight because of me." "First, go serve in the military, Jinho. Go there and mature." "Yes," he replied softly. "You finally can breathe easily now. You've worked hard." It was a relief that he finally matured. "Ah, brother, thank you," Jinho said. "Ha ha, congrats. Stop upsetting your parents now," his friend teased. "Yes," he answered, "I should." And so it seemed peace had finally found the family. But suffering from a deep mental thirst, Jinho began going back and forth to the hospital with depression. His parents came to a decision. "Live the way you want," his father said. "It seems I failed to understand your feelings all this time." "Thank you," Jinho's voice trembled. Submitting his resignation letter, Jinho began to pursue his passion. And then the explosion, the accident that sent him to the Joseon period. "This is actually better. Now that I'm born with a silver spoon, I'll do all the hobbies I couldn't do in my previous life. What's our son feeling so good about?" Judging by how he enjoys the classics being recited, she thought, "Our son must be excellent at writing." It was a fatal misunderstanding. Time flew quickly. "Congratulations, my lord," a servant said. "Thank you," his father replied. Another servant echoed, "Congratulations." "The man that is my father, it looks like he's in a better position than I thought. Is a royal family that isn't in a succession race actually more dangerous? Will I be fine?" "It's His Highness, the Crown Prince." "Welcome, Your Highness, the Crown Prince. Welcome, Your Highness, the Grand Prince. Yo, nice to meet you." The Crown Prince laughed warmly. "To think my nephew already has his first birthday party? Chungyoung, congratulations. Sister-in-law, congratulations too." "Thank you, Your Highness," Jinho's mother said. "I think I am mentioning an important key word earlier. Sister-in-law, may I hold my nephew once? It would be an honor, Your Highness."
Hangyang, hurry and choose. In a ritual of the doll party, where objects are laid out and the item a child picks up predicts the child's future. Aw, boo. So it's my doll Jabby? Let's see. What should I pick? That's... Huh? Kya? Huh? Me? Kya? Aha! Kya? So it's not me. But my earrings? Such elaborate craftsmanship of this era. Although there was some chaos due to the unexpected doll Jabby, the first birthday party ended successfully. It's a bit frustrating. Your Highness, please dress correctly. What's the problem? This is the era of the military government. If I ascend to my position, I will restore the old lands of the three Han dynasties and turn Joseon into the Great Joseon. You can't, Your Highness. Ming is a great empire. With Joseon's current national power, it is an inevitable defeat. Don't worry too much. Once I ascend to my position, I will definitely achieve great things. Joseon's current capability is lacking. We must raise our capabilities. I'm aware of that too. I have no plans on achieving my great cause at once either. I'm thinking of 10 years of preparation, so don't worry. 10 years is way too short. By then, almost all of the generals who had served Zhuyonjang, the founder of the Ming dynasty, would disappear due to purges and old age, and the remaining generals would all be lost in the civil war waged by Yongle, the current emperor. Moreover, haven't the generals that Yongle trained disappeared due to civil war and conquest? In other words, I think 10 years is enough time. Ugh, Young, don't you have a brain? How can you forget that Yongle always dispatches 500,000 soldiers in every subjugation?
The scary thing about the Mings aren't just their soldiers, but the administrative and logistics system that makes such, let alone 10 years, 30 years won't. 1 year of farmland appraisal and 1 year of census is enough. I'm the crown prince. I admit you're smart, but I'm the only one who will ascend to the throne, not you. You just need to assist me. Who would have anticipated such behavior from the sons of a warlord? What? Sejong, my old man, was not the one to succeed to the throne? The competition between Chungyang and Yangyang became more intense unknowingly. Ha ha ha! So, what did that old fox say? Tell me again. Long ago, when His Majesty had yet to ascend to the throne, I advised him to participate in scholarly activities, to which he said, "A grand prince has no business being part of scholars, so what's the point of studying? Who shall be king but the son of a king? I am truly delighted, seeing how you, the grand prince, like to learn just like him." That's what Lord Nam said. Nam Jae, that oldie, sweet-talking Chungyang, how dare him? Your Majesty, what do you plan to do? What do you think? Just leave him be. The prime cause of this competition was King Taejong's ambiguous response. I can't tell what father is thinking about at all. He keeps praising everything Chungyang does and overlooks mine. Lord Shim, what are you trying to achieve? Ho ho, Lord Park, it's nothing like that. I thought I certainly told you to ask Grand Prince Chungyang to watch himself the other day. It just slipped my mind at that time. You must not do this, Lord Shim. Step aside. I must see the Grand Prince at once. Please don't act like this. I'll definitely ask His Highness this time. Please stop here for today. Unless you want to experience the bloody tragedy that occurred during the reign of the great King Taejo again, you must tell him. The die is cast anyway. In the end, history did not change, and the king raised his hand for the Grand Prince Chungyang. Congratulations! From this point on, you are the Crown Prince Chungyang.
You know the proverb that the enemy of one's past life becomes one's current wife, right? We can see that this proverb fits perfectly if we take the case of King Taejong and his wife as an example. Or shall I say they're a love-hate couple? Sejong the Great killed his wife's family to keep his maternal relatives in check. So in a way, this is obvious. That aside, Crown Princess, I heard that your father has been busy lately. I have no idea about this, as I'm always in my room. Is that so? Tell him I hope he can live a more leisurely life since he's pretty old now. Even though he's in good times, won't everything end up in vain if he loses his health? Yes, I shall be sure to convey the message. At this rate, a bloodbath may occur. Shim Zhong, the governor of Uihong's 3rd Military Division and the younger brother of Shim An. During the meeting, Kang Sang-yin said, "King's power has been totally limited by the looming presence of the retired king." I see. That remark was aimed at retired King Taejong, who did not completely step down even after transferring the throne. They'll have to pay the price for not knowing their places. Get them all! As if I was not enough, did you have to turn even our daughter-in-law's family this way? If one has suitable maternal relatives, they can serve as a strong defense later on, though. Should I try to convince him? No, it would be best to stay still. Even in real history, that's how it went. Judging by his face, there's no mistaking that Taejong and Sejong have some kind of agreement. In that case, not making a move is the best way ahead. It is not right to dethrone a person who has already given birth to 3 legitimate children for the king without speculation.
It is not appropriate for the daughter of a traitor to be the queen. We must dispose her. If you keep saying that, I will return the throne to the retired king. Then the queen will no longer be the queen, will she? So you shall not talk about any more disposal of the queen." You did well by not stepping in. I wonder if it's because he's born in a warlord's family, but father is so cool-headed when making decisions. As expected, you can't deceive blood. Is his final goal strengthening the royal power? How unfortunate. Had I more power and leisure, I'd have prepared for this conquest a bit more. What happened to Yi Jong-moo's OE invasion? Was it a half-success? Is my son already interested in national affairs? You need to study if you want to participate in national affairs. Head eunuch, summon the chief royal secretary. Yes, Your Majesty. Your Highness the Prince, let's quickly go. I hate studying! I can't stay like this. At this rate, I won't be able to do my hobbies and die young only studying just like history. If I don't want to turn that way, I must construct a plan from now on. The plan's basis is that the great King Sejong is a fanatic. On top of making a lot of ingenious things, he is also quite active in raising contributing figures. If that's the case, I must make father fall on my side too. To begin with, I must gather talented craftsmen first. If they don't have enough skills, just roll with it. I'm going to be the crown prince soon, so what is there I can't do? And if I show the completed invention to father, with father's personality, I should be able to get enough funding. Well, if I gather a few successes like this, not only can I strengthen my position, but I can also expand my fields. If I just do this, my happy, nerdy life is guaranteed. Of course, I have to study a bit, but I will just study to a minimum. Ha! Since I can't get behind in an argument with the ministers, I have no other choice but to study. Then what's left to do is captivating the attendance of the crown prince, those who are responsible for my education, right? Once I reach the age of maturity, they will hold a position, so it's better to mark them in advance. On top of that, it would be even better if I roast them well and turn them into slaves who move just for me. Just wait, slaves of the future.
Hyang, the prince, walking through the palace and expressing his disgust at the unsanitary state of the court, complaining that the damned palace is so disgusting it's killing me. He senses a foul odor, immediately recognizing it. This smell? Not again! The scene shifts to a royal lecture where officials conclude their session and ask Hyang if he has any questions. Hyang immediately challenges the officials with a keen observation, noting that he saw a court lady with feces on the hem of her clothes on the way to the lecture. He argues that while natural, it's problematic if the clothing itself causes inconvenience. An official responds that clothing represents one's class and protects one from the elements, so it is natural to put up with such inconveniences. Hyang, seemingly referencing a Confucian saying, counters that it is wrong to judge class based on clothes, and that it is the traditional way of thinking that needs to change. The official quickly sidesteps the topic, stating the problem cannot be solved right away. Frustrated, Hyang changes the topic and surprises the officials by bringing up the conquest of Tsushima Island and the corresponding letter he saw with his father, the king. He highlights two major problems: the lack of a properly trained naval force and the decision not to relocate Tsushima's citizens to the northern region of Joseon. He argues that relocating them would eliminate the need to worry about the daimyo of Tsushima or grant him titles and a bronze seal. Once again, the officials avoid answering directly, stating the issue is too sensitive for subordinates to discuss.
Later, the officials expressed disbelief that such intelligent and politically aware questions could come from a 5-year-old child. Hyang, throwing a book in frustration, laments that the officials gave him half-assed answers because he wasn't the crown prince. He worries that his life might be as short as the original King Moonjong. Resolving to accelerate his plans, he swears that the officials are done for the moment he becomes the crown prince. The story fast-forwards to year 3 of Sejong, when Hyang is 7 years old and he is proclaimed the crown prince. Despite his exhaustion from the ceremony, he is relieved, declaring that he has been waiting forever. Now as the crown prince, he reviews his father's policies, noting the salt monopoly and the problems of tribute to the Ming Empire, land problems, and smuggling. He identifies the lack of government gold and his own limited authority as the biggest obstacles, despite being the crown prince. Frustrated with the inability to solve the big issues immediately, he decides to start small first. Observing his difficulty using a traditional brush, he realizes the focus should be on solving the minor inconveniences of the era. The chapter ends with Hyang declaring, "This is just the beginning."
The chapter opens with the sound of hammering at the ordnance cell, the government office responsible for manufacturing weapons. Crown Prince Hyun arrives, pleased by the smell of iron, and decides to visit the office frequently to pursue his hobbies, crafting modern items. The supervisor, Lee Chung-ho, greets the Crown Prince, who praises their hard work for strengthening Joseon's defenses. Hyang then asks for the best craftsman at handling gold and iron. A smith is presented, and Hyang immediately shows him great respect, refusing to call him lowly and emphasizing the importance of his work for Joseon's defenses. He then asks the craftsman if he can make a substitute for a brush. The design is a modern fountain pen nib. Hyang specifies the requirements for the craftsman. The nib needs to be made of gold and silver to prevent rust from contact with water or ink. It should be made by pounding thin plates. If a proper mold is created, they can produce 20 pieces a day. The most challenging part will be creating the slit in the nib. The stroke thickness for writing should be around 1 ri, approximately 0.3 millimeters, similar to a 0.5 millimeter mechanical pencil lead. The craftsman tentatively estimates 2 days for a test piece, but Hyang grants him 3 days to show his best results, a subtle display of princely grace and authority. 3 days later, the craftsman presents nibs with 5 different thicknesses. Hyang tests them and is delighted with the result, sincerely complimenting the craftsman's hard work. The craftsman humbly credits the crown prince's teaching. Hyang then orders 100 pens of the chosen thickness, with 10 of them requiring special care. He also requests that plum blossoms be engraved on the gold pen body. For the final order, the craftsman estimates 10 days, but Hyang adds 2 extra days, demanding in return that there must not be a single defective product as he plans to present them to the king. He also stresses that the project must be kept a secret. The craftsman and his associates are astonished by the crown prince's maturity, noting that his speech and actions are like those of an adult in his 30s, despite him being only 8 years old. The craftsman is elated to receive the greatest craftsman of Joseon title from the crown prince, cherishing the prototype pen as a future heirloom. On December 10th, year 3 of Sejong, the gold pens are presented to the king. The king is immediately complimentary, finding the pens extremely comfortable for quick writing. He notices the plum blossom engravings, which Hyang explains are suitable symbols of the royal family. The king then asks the crucial question, how Hyang conceived of the item. Hyang explains that he was inspired by watching ink climb between the brush hairs when the king was wetting his ink.
He points out that this phenomenon defied the natural flow of water and fascinated him, leading him to create the pen. The king highly praises the crown prince's intelligence, calling him a prime example of acquiring knowledge through experience. Seizing the moment, Hyang makes his request to distribute the gold pens to the historians and government officials. He argues that since the historian's task of recording is so daunting and they work without rest, they need something to help them. The king, highly impressed by Hyang's thoughtful consideration for his subjects, immediately approves the request. The ministers echo the king's praise, finding the scene beautiful because the young man thought so much of his subjects. The king concludes by ordering the servants to share the gold pens, and the palace staff admiring the crown prince's deep-thinking nature.
Following Crown Prince Hyang's successful introduction of the gold pens to the court, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Among the historians and government officials, Hyang's favorability rose exponentially. Their writing efforts were drastically reduced after using the gold pens. Building on this momentum, Hyang also presented writing pads to the court. He explained the utility of this new item, stating that when a military general carries out his duties, there are times when he has to give urgent orders, and this tablet would help them write comfortably anywhere and everywhere, serving as a perfect complement to the gold pen. Pleased, King Sejong ordered both items to be manufactured in large quantities and distributed to all military personnel. The gold pens began to change the daily life of the kingdom, becoming instantly popular in the public sphere. However, the rapid success soon brought trouble. An official informed the king of an unpleasant development on the streets. Counterfeit gold pens were being distributed. The ministers were furious, demanding severe punishment for those who dared to imitate a royal item for private gain. King Sejong called upon his son, the Crown Prince. "Crown Prince, I'd like to ask what you think," the king inquired. Hyang, with a look of deep consideration, replied, "Would you leave this matter to me?" 1 month later, the Crown Prince gathered the heads of the merchant troops at the Ministry of Taxation. He immediately cut to the chase. "For the future, I plan to entrust the production of gold pens and regular pens to one of the merchant troops here," he announced. Then came the harsh terms. Merchants who produce gold pens must pay 20% of the profits earned from sales to the government, and the price of the gold pens in the market should not be more than 60% of the cost incurred in manufacturing, Hyang dictated. A merchant stepped forward to object, arguing that after deducting wages and welfare shares, their net profit would just be 10%. Hyang instantly exposed the man's deception. "How dare you lie before my eyes? I'm sure I said 20% of the profit. Doesn't 20% of 30% amount to just 6%? The consequences were swift. Throw that impious man who is blinded by profit and is telling lies out of the palace, and remove the bidding qualifications of that merchant troop." The disgraced merchant was dragged away, pleading for forgiveness. Hyang then turned to the terrified remaining merchants. "As long as you use despicable tricks like that man, you merchants will not be able to escape being treated as nothing," Hyang declared, issuing a powerful warning. "Keep this point in mind." The message was clearly received, and the bidding session concluded without any merchant daring to plot a trick. Hyang watched the outcome, satisfied, thinking, "Nice, things are going smoothly. I can just go at this pace." However, the narrative was immediately interrupted. Inspector General Sung rushed into the court, exclaiming, "Your Highness, I, Inspector General Sung would like to say something. We must not proceed with His Highness the Crown Prince's plan."
The success of the gold pens significantly boosted the national budget, causing King Sejong and his ministers to begin paying attention to the positive effects of trading. Despite the increasing budget, this shift toward commerce quietly galvanized dissatisfied forces among the officials. Conservative ministers gathered to express their dismay. How come the royal court become a place to do business?
They lamented that merchants, who were traditionally seen as the lowest social strata, were receiving too much favor from the king and his court. They all blamed the crown prince, stating that the entire situation has been started by His Highness the Crown Prince. They resolved that they must set His Majesty straight so he doesn't stray even further to the wrong path. Though acknowledging the young prince's brightness, they dismissed him as just a young kid. They were poised to file an appeal, but before they could, Taejong passed away. Seeing this as a sign, the dissatisfied officials decided that waiting for the next chance is the best option. Meanwhile, Hyang, the crown prince, remained busy. He was acquiring books from Europe to create a plausible source of inspiration. Planning to tell the officials he learned his ideas from these books so they wouldn't suspect everything was his own invention. He concluded that he must also know how to lie, confirming that everything is according to plan. The new proposals. Hyang continued his innovation by suggesting the adoption of Hindu numbers, what Westerners called Arabic numerals, into the kingdom. He argued that they were highly useful for expressing numbers. The Minister of Taxation, Kim Jom, and the Minister of Personnel, Hyo Jo, agreed with the Crown Prince's suggestion. King Sejong approved a trial run in those two departments for 1 month, promising nationwide implementation if the results proved good. Next, the king brought up a serious matter. Emperor Yongle of Ming was highly satisfied with the gold pens that Sejong had sent as a gift, and had sent an edict ordering a tribute of 10,000 pieces. Recognizing the strain this would put on the already lacking national budget, Hyang offered a solution. "Father, how about the government runs a business?" Inspector General Sung immediately objected, but the king silenced him, telling Hyang to continue. Hyang proposed that since the Ming Emperor liked the pen, and the Ming Empire was enormous, Joseon could contact the merchant troupe in charge of manufacturing the pens and produce more to sell in Ming in addition to the required tribute. Furthermore, he proposed ordering merchants to accompany the envoys to Ming, demanding only a rent payment in return. The king and his officials performed quick calculations and realized we can certainly make a profit. The Crown Prince's eloquence. Inspector General Sung however, vehemently rejected the plan. "We must not proceed with His Highness's Crown Prince's plan." He conceded the plan would bring wealth, but argued that if wealth was gained, people would drown in luxury, which would lead to tyranny. He warned that this path would make the king's true war impossible to achieve. The Minister of Rights strongly seconded this view. The Minister of Rights also argued that letting the lowly merchants participate in a diplomatic trip would defile Joseon's dignity, concluding that the young crown prince doesn't really know national affairs and diplomacy. Hyang requested permission to answer, which the king granted. Hyang seized the argument immediately. "Did the Inspector General say that if we gain wealth, people will drown in luxury, and this will lead to tyranny?" He countered that the wealth was being brought from outside, not squeezed from the people's sweat and blood. The Inspector General insisted the sale would be a one-time success, and the people would bear the burden when it failed again. Hyang's voice cut him off. "Do you only live for today, Inspector General?" He then provided stunning consumption figures. 400 gold pens at the government level, and more than 1,000 among the masses. The shocked Inspector General was forced to stammer an apology. Hyang hammered his point home. Therefore, at least for the sake of the people, the companionship of merchants is absolutely necessary. He then presented a book, The Geography of the World, which he acquired through the envoys. He revealed that neighboring countries like Ming and Dai Viet harvested more grain and had a surplus. Hyang concluded that Joseon must use the profits from the envoys to purchase grain and provide relief to its suffering people. Sung the inspector general, countered with conservative ideology. The true way of the king means the honest poverty of both the ruler and the people, being content amid poverty, taking pleasure in acting honestly, and building virtue. Hyang unleashed his final, most passionate retort, dismissing the ideology as hypocritical. Do you see people genuinely wanting to live in honest poverty? The people are just poor now. He graphically described the suffering of the people, dying from drought, freezing in winter, and starving in spring. He posed the rhetorical question, under such circumstances, who will praise the monarch for its virtue? Citing the saying, even a noble will jump over the wall if his child starves for 3 days, he proclaimed, a king is the father of all people. Shouldn't he do anything for them? The king, deeply moved by the crown prince's impassioned plea, slapped his hands on the ground and shouted, "My boy, wonderful talk!"
The chapter immediately picks up after King Sejong's ecstatic praise for his son's defense of the people. Hyang capitalized on the king's favor, linking his economic plans to Confucian morality. He argued that nobles and ministers could suppress their hunger with reason and virtue, but commoners, lacking that education, could not. Therefore, if we want to teach them and cultivate virtue, shouldn't we at least make them not hungry? The king was overwhelmed with excitement. Hyang then delivered his final, masterful blow to the traditionalists. He addressed the conservative notion that adversity, like drought or famine, occurred because the king lacked virtue, forcing him to cultivate virtue first. Hyang countered that this logic was twisted. He articulated the correct order of governance. We must arrange for water and food before drought, prepare medicine in advance before the epidemic, and store grains before the year of famine comes. Isn't that the correct order? He then accused the ministers of not making these necessary preparations and instead foisting the blame onto the king's perceived lack of virtue. He challenged them directly, asking, "Are you all saying that our Joseon dynasty lacks virtue?" The officials immediately prostrated themselves, denying any heinous and insolent thoughts and repeatedly begging the king for mercy. The king calmed the situation, gently reprimanding the crown prince. The crown prince was too harsh. Hyang, playing the role of the chastised son, apologized and begged forgiveness. King Sejong then issued his final, masterful blow to the traditionalists. He sided decisively with his son, saying, "Ministers, listen up. I also believe that relief for the people should come first. Additionally, the tribute the Emperor of Ming asked for will be executed as the Crown Prince's plan." The ministers reluctantly submitted. "We will do as you wish." Before concluding the assembly, Hyang had one final addition. He argued that donating grain was insufficient. Instead, it was more appropriate to distribute grain to people in return for work. The ministers had no choice but to agree that it was indeed an excellent idea. The assembly ended, and the king gave Hyang official permission to participate in the political discussions once the ancestral rites end. As the ministers departed, they were deeply shaken, realizing the gravity of their mistake. "Sigh, we've taken a big blow. We underestimated him because he's young." One minister suggested submitting a letter of resignation, while others clung to their duty to correct the king, planning to make sure to turn His Majesty into a sage by persuading him to listen to their counsel. Meanwhile, King Sejong spoke with the queen, who mentioned the uproar in the assembly. Sejong confessed, "I was the one who caused the uproar."
He admitted he got carried away and used the passionate speech he employed during his time as Grand Prince, lamenting that this affected the dignity of a king. The king dismissed the queen's concerns about Hyung's age and political participation. He felt Hyung was fine, noting, "The more I look at him, the more it feels like he's in his 40s." Alone in his chamber, the king reflected on the situation, the expression on his face darkening. He realized that the palace is still full of father's subjects, hinting at the remaining loyalists of the previous reign. He pondered his next move against these entrenched forces. Should I make them come out on their own, or should I chase them out? Should I let it end prettily, or see blood to it?
The Ministry of Taxation began the production of gold pens for the Ming Emperor. However, a grave problem arose. The merchant troupe in charge said they could not meet the production deadline. Crown Prince Hyung determined that given Joseon's current workshop setup, the pens wouldn't be produced in time. He asked his father for permission to summon the merchant representative. The Inspector General vehemently objected to summoning a lowly merchant to the court. The king, losing patience, silenced the Inspector General, telling him to suggest an alternative. The king allowed the merchant representative into the hall. The merchant explained the production was slow because the gold pen was a meticulous item, and skilled craftsmen made them one by one. Hyung then requested to speak with the craftsman. The king, overriding the Inspector General's protests, declared, "Why can't I summon anyone here if it's in the national interest?" The craftsman confirmed that one person made a single gold pen from start to finish. Hyung introduced a modern production method. When making gold pens, one person should spread the gold plate, another one should craft out the shape, and a third one should engrave the pattern. The craftsman agreed it was possible and believed that once accustomed to the method, it will be faster than our current speed. Hyung explained the concept. This concept is known as division of labor. When asked how he thought of such a miraculous idea, Hyung claimed he remembered seeing assistant chefs and court ladies dividing their work in the royal kitchen. An official immediately countered, expressing concern that the crown prince only pays attention to trivial things. Hyung defended his method, asking, "How could you say that contemplating and finding the meaning behind an event that ordinary people ignore is something trivial?" The king escalated the matter, questioning the official's loyalty by linking the statement to the legitimacy of the previous kings. The terrified minister swore he had never entertained any disloyal thought. Hyung returned to the East Palace, anxious that his father was calling him too often and worried he had inadvertently dug up his own grave. He reflected on the political reality. Joseon was caught in a power struggle between the king seeking absolute monarchy and retainers dreaming of a republic where the king was weaker than his subjects. He concluded that his goal was to secure his comfort and future, resolving, "That's it." Finally, the chapter ends with Hyung's smiling reflection on his strategic goal. He resolved to establish everything one by one, starting with strengthening his father's throne. To accomplish this, he needed capital and determined, "I am going to fill up the national treasury first." The chapter opens in the royal court as the conservative ministers continue their opposition to Hyung's economic plans. "I have something to say about the envoys that will be going to the Ming Empire," Hyung announced, revealing he had two demands that must be confirmed by the emperor. His first demand, to fill the national treasury, was to secure exclusive rights to the gold pins sold by Joseon's merchants in the Ming Empire. He argued that since the Ming emperor had already demanded more gold pins, their reception must be exceptionally positive, and therefore the demand would be several times higher than in Joseon. His second demand concerned the Ming envoys, who often demanded excessive supplies when they came to Joseon. Hyung proposed obtaining a decree from the Ming emperor prohibiting these excessive demands.
A minister immediately exploded. "That is impossible, Your Highness the Crown Prince." He argued that since Joseon was a tributary state, protesting against a great empire's subject was discourteous. Hyung countered by asking if persecuting a small kingdom was acceptable for a great empire's subject. The ministers worried that reducing the gifts presented to Ming would certainly lead to a backlash. Hyung angrily challenged this appeasement, reminding them that those gifts came from the hard work of our people, and that the increasing quantity demanded by Ming was decreasing the food available for the Joseon people. He warned that at this rate, even national tax revenue would decrease. The minister dismissed Hyung's concerns, stating he still did not understand national affairs and that speaking ill of Joseon to the emperor's eunuchs, who were their closest servants, could cause the kingdom to fall into danger. Hyung accused the minister of taking the emperor for a fool and then returned to the issue of wealth being stolen from the treasury. He accused the high officials of desperately submitting themselves to the whims of mere eunuchs. Quoting Confucius, Hyung passionately argued that their current behavior, growling and offering wealth to eunuchs, did not qualify them as great men. Finally, Hyung knelt and requested permission from the king. "Please let me lead the envoys this time. I shall go and petition the emperor and stop this wrong practice no matter what. Please grant me your permission." He stressed the urgency, declaring the situation was both a crisis and an opportunity, and failure would lead to Joseon becoming a small, isolated nation. The king, though moved, ordered him to return to his abode. "Crown Prince, the road to Beijing is far and rough," he said. As the eunuchs removed the screaming Crown Prince, Hyung, alone in his residence, recovered his composure. "Ah, shit. I couldn't help but get too riled up." He swore he wouldn't stay still. Later, the ministers continued their protest to the king. "We must not proceed with what the Crown Prince said," they pleaded. The king, deeply frustrated, lashed out. "A child that's merely 9 thinks over how to make our kingdom rich, but you all only keep repeating, 'No, no, and no.'" Just then, an attendant rushed in screaming, "We're in big trouble! His Highness, the Crown Prince, is preparing to leave." The terrified ministers asked where the child was going. "He's going right to the Ming Empire at once," the attendant explained. "The Crown Prince's message is, he says that he must not delay even a moment if he genuinely cares for the nation and the people."
The chapter opens with the king's eunuchs being intercepted by ministers while organizing documents at the royal secretariat. The eunuchs revealed they were following the crown prince's order to list all items that have been given to the envoys from the Ming Empire since the reign of His Majesty King Sejong. The ministers, realizing Hyung's deep calculation, cried out, "What? This little brat!" Moments later, a desperate official rushed to the court, announcing that His Highness the Crown Prince is packing up to go to the Ming Empire right now. King Sejong, queen, and ministers hurried to the East Palace. King Sejong furiously confronted his son. "You little brat, what is with this impulsive behavior?" Hyung retorted that he was not impulsive, but doing what I have to do as the crown prince. He argued that age isn't a limit to doing the right thing. He equated the king to the father of the people and himself to the eldest brother, stating, "My brothers wail every time an envoy comes and goes, so how can the eldest brother stay quiet?" Enraged, the king demanded the chief eunuch bring a whip and a fulling block. The queen and ministers immediately pleaded for leniency, but the king ordered the queen to be escorted out, proclaiming, "The younger you are, the more severely you should be scolded." The king proceeded to severely punish the crown prince, citing 3 sins: acting arrogant with his little knowledge, looking down on the retainers and lacking manners, and taking his father's orders lightly. He ordered Hyung to repent thoroughly and ensure the behavior never happened again. Afterwards, as the king was leaving, he muttered a warning to the still present ministers, "You petty people who are no better than a child." The queen's eunuch later confirmed that the queen angrily blamed the ministers for the incident, saying, "How were you all unable to come up with what such a young child came up with and cause this incident to happen?" Later, the queen came to the king, questioning why he punished Hyung so severely. King Sejong revealed his calculated reasoning. He conceded the crown prince is a clever kid, but warned a tree that stands too upright breaks easily. He explained that the punishment was necessary because there are times when one becomes so intoxicated by your own cleverness that you face opposition from your ministers. The key to leadership, he revealed, was trust. If one can't obtain the trust of the ministers, how will one be able to look after his people? The king then took the scrolls Hyung had organized. These documents detailed the wealth sent to Ming, revealing the smallest recorded demand was 2 months' worth of the annual budget. He exclaimed that the wealth sent to Ming would total around 1 year's budget. He confronted the ministers with the evidence, showing that the wealth sent to Ming was increasing year on year. When the ministers were unable to answer, the king lashed out, "Are you unable to think of the thing that even the young crown prince thought of?" The terrified ministers apologized repeatedly. The king gave the ministers 2 hours to decide on the envoy representative and his aide, warning that failure to comply would be judged as high treason. The king concluded his conversation with the queen, assuring her he would guide Hyung so he could walk on the righteous path. Hyung's actions were extreme but not wrong, and the king's discipline was deemed appropriate due to that extremism. Crown Prince Hyung looked at his younger brother, Yi-yu, the future King Sejong, who was playing excitedly, and mused that this seemingly innocent boy would grow up to cause a bloodbath in the palace. Hyung reflected on Sejong's future actions, killing the rightful owner of Hyung's current body, Munjung, purging the opposition in the Gyeoujungnan coup, and poisoning his own brother, Grand Prince Anpyeong. Determined to prevent this historical tragedy, Hyung concluded he must act before Yu started showing signs of his tyrannical nature. Hyung decided the best method to remodel Yu was through thorough early education and rote learning. His ultimate goal was chillingly direct. "I'll make him work under me until his death." He greeted Yu and his brother, Yi-young, Grand Prince Anpyeong. Hyung expressed curiosity about Yu's studies and offered, "Would you like to study with your brother today?" Yu suspiciously questioned, "Why?" Hyung, momentarily caught off guard, composed himself and claimed that Yu can't be slacking off like this right now because he must work under him later. Yu immediately refused, emphatically stating, "No, I can learn alone," and ran off. But later heard court ladies praising the crown prince's incredible literary and political talent, comparing him favorably to Yu and Young. They're bound to be compared to one another. Later, Hyung showed his brothers flashcards he had the eunuchs create for learning Chinese characters, explaining the characters were modeled after the sky and earth. Yu again rejected the offer, curtly saying, "I have my own teacher, so I'm fine," and left. The next day, Hyung secretly watched Yu studying. He noted Yu's surprisingly good manners, but then overheard Yu reciting the 3 fundamental bonds and 5 constant virtues. Hyung discovered that Yu was already remarkably talented in both literary and martial arts, a talent only inferior to Hyung's real body's owner, King Munjong. Hyung realized the strategy needed to change. He found Yu practicing swordsmanship and approached him. "It seems like you have been training in martial arts. While we're at it, would you teach me swordsmanship?" Yu tried to dismiss the request, claiming there wasn't much to it, but Hyung persisted.
During the impromptu lesson, Hyung deliberately acted completely inept, crying, "Hyungnim, oh my, as I thought, this isn't easy." Hyung begged Yu, "Please, it's my request, to teach his older brother from now on." Yu, suddenly taking charge, began instructing Hyung, condescendingly asking, "How could you be so bad at this?" The crown prince willingly submitted to the teaching of his future tyrannical brother, now securing the personal connection he desired.
The chapter begins by demonstrating the widespread success of Crown Prince Hyung's flashcards, a simple invention that made learning Chinese characters fun and accessible. The news quickly spread through the palace, with court officials and their wives eager to acquire the learning tool for their children's education. One official finally approached Hyung, pleading, "If it's possible, could you please let us know how to make those flashcards?" When Hyung acted coy, the official immediately offered to buy them at any price. Elated, Hyung agreed to sell, naming the price 3 sem of white rice. The shocked official repeated, 3 sem? Hyung calmly explained the breakdown. The first sen, 53 kilograms, was for the cost of materials. The second would go into the national treasury, and the last sen was for his personal use, specifically for buying books. Despite the high price, the officials clamored to buy them, worried about the future of their families. Hyung, satisfied that he could now nerd out to my heart's content, had successfully monetized his first educational product. Next, Hyung's focus dramatically shifted to his father, King Sejong's health. The crown prince stormed into his private meal, shouting, "Father, are you only eating meat again?" The king and his attendants were outraged by the interruption, with the king snapping, "You little! Don't you know it's a sin to disturb even a dog when it is eating?" Hyung inspected the king's meal, noting that the dishes were entirely meat and that the king wasn't touching the vegetables. He launched into a relentless, high-pitched lecture. "Excessive consumption of meat will make the blood turbid. If you're not careful, it can also affect your head. What will happen to the kingdom if father's head is affected? The stability of this country will be shaken." Hyung forced the royal kitchen staff to redo the seasoning and reduce the meat. The king, whose attendants warned he would explode by now, finally reached his limit. He erupted, "You little brat! I can't hold back anymore! Stop interfering with your father's meal!" The king ordered Hyung to be removed immediately and barred him from meals. Unable to manage the king's diet directly, Hyung sought a different solution. He marched into the workshop and demanded the craftsmen make a strange item. He was relentless, making them redo the work multiple times, shouting, "This isn't it! Make it again, sturdier this time," and using a whip on the bench for emphasis. Finally, Hyung presented the finished product to the king, a skipping rope or jump rope. Hyung explained it was an excellent plan that will take care of your health, father. The king and his minister stared at the strange, ordinary-looking rope, wondering, "Does this really help with my health?" Crown Prince Hyung presented his newest creation to his father, the skipping rope. He claimed it was an excellent plan that will take care of your health, father. The king, though skeptical, allowed Hyung to demonstrate. Hyung showed how the king was meant to use the rope, explaining that Western scholars' books recorded that those who sat for long periods had weaker lower bodies, but using this object would make their legs stronger. Hyung winked and added that the rope was also something good for males, which piqued the king's interest. The king, intrigued by the health and implied personal benefits, agreed to try, asking if he simply had to jump to the sound of the bell attached to the rope. Hyung eagerly counted, ordering the chief eunuch to count to 100 jumps. The king, panting and struggling, was shocked to find he had only managed 9 jumps. He asked Hyung to reduce the number, but Hyung insisted, "No, we can't do that, father. We have a long way to go. I will stay with you until you reach 100, father."
King Sejong began performing the rope skipping daily. The intense exercise immediately improved his health. The king, who previously struggled to have a bowel movement once every 3 days, began visiting the apricot flower bowl, the royal potty, daily. He was also able to stay up later to do the nation's work and began visiting the queen more frequently. The results were so dramatic they immediately became palace gossip. Officials noted the king's improved complexion and concluded this was the power of rope skipping. Soon, a crowd of officials descended on Hyung, clamoring for the new product, complaining of fatigue, insomnia, and being constantly nagged by their wives. "Can you create more of those skipping ropes? It doesn't matter how many seum of rice you want," they pleaded. Hyung, delighted, immediately employed his division of labor method on the spot to meet the demand. "Henceforth, you all will be dividing your work. One in charge of the ropes, one for the handles, and one for the bells." He then placed an order for 500 more. Hyung wasn't finished. He brought a garment pattern to the royal tailor, explaining that those wearing skirts would be uncomfortable skipping. So this new garment was designed to help them able to move more comfortably. As his wealth gathered faster than I thought, Hyung laughed triumphantly, but confessed that he was still lacking. "I'm still hungry." Meanwhile, the conservative ministers observed Hyung's brazen pursuit of wealth through sales. They remained confident that he would eventually overstep. If His Highness becomes conceited and unable to discern his logic, he'll walk into the path of destruction himself. Suddenly, a frantic official rushed in, screaming, We in big trouble! His Highness the Crown Prince has attempted suicide!" If you are enjoying these videos and manhwas, do like, subscribe, and comment. That will motivate us to bring new indie titles like this to you.